For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a fateful Monday morning, after a weekend jam session by the river, 17-year-old Avery Dunham left her friends in the Ozarks National Forest, intending to return home. She never arrived. Despite an extensive investigation involving park rangers and volunteer firefighters, Avery Dunham vanished without a trace into the dense, unforgiving wilderness. For 4 agonizing years, her family lived with the crushing weight of uncertainty, hoping for any sign of their beloved daughter. Then, in the scorching summer of 2008, following a devastating wildfire, a grim discovery was made within a remote campground. A discovery that spoke not of an accident, but of a chilling, deliberate act. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Avery Dunham and the sinister secrets unearthed from the heart of the Ozarks. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The Ozarks National Forest in Arkansas presents a landscape of profound, ancient beauty. Rolling hills give way to steep bluffs, dense canopies of oak and hickory obscure sunlight, and rivers carve intricate paths through limestone. It is a place both breathtakingly serene and inherently wild, its vastness capable of swallowing secrets. Into this rugged expanse, Avery Dunham, a 17-year-old, brought the vibrant energy of youth. A high school drummer with an infectious rhythm, Avery was known for his quick smile and an unwavering passion for music. His aspirations extended beyond the small-town horizons, fueled by dreams of stages and studios. Archival descriptions depict a lanky teenager, drumsticks often in hand, a testament to his dedication. The weekend of his disappearance began like countless others for local teenagers. Avery joined friends at a secluded campground by the river, a familiar haunt for informal jam sessions. The air would have been thick with the sound of amateur guitars, the steady beat of Avery's drums, and the easy camaraderie of youth. These gatherings were a rite of passage, a temporary escape into the freedom of the forest before the return to school and responsibilities. But Sunday evening brought not Avery's return, but a growing unease. His parents' initial calls went unanswered. By Monday morning, the worry had curdled into a cold dread. Avery Dunham was not home. He had not contacted anyone. The vibrant rhythm of his life had abruptly ceased. A frantic search commenced almost immediately. Family members, friends, and local law enforcement converged on the campground, their hopeful shouts echoing through the quiet woods. Every path, every clearing, every bend in the river was scrutinized. The urgency was palpable, driven by the stark reality of a missing teenager in a sprawling, unforgiving environment. Avery's guidance counselor described him as focused, ambitious, but also possessing a restless spirit, perhaps drawn to the solitude and inspiration the Ozarks offered. A park ranger, intimately familiar with the region's deceptive scale, articulated the immense challenge facing searchers. The forest, while beautiful, could conceal a person indefinitely, its trails often leading deeper into the unknown rather than out of it. As hours bled into days, the search intensified, expanding beyond the initial campground. Helicopters scanned from above, ground teams meticulously combed the underbrush, and local volunteers joined the desperate effort. Yet, despite the widespread mobilization, Avery Dunham remained undiscovered, leaving a community gripped by fear and the chilling uncertainty of his fate. The initial frantic efforts to locate Avery Dunham swiftly escalated into a comprehensive, organized search. Teams from the local sheriff's department, state police, and numerous volunteer organizations converged on the Ozarks National Forest. Grid patterns were established, and hundreds of individuals, some intimately familiar with the rugged landscape, methodically combed through dense undergrowth, scaled steep inclines, and navigated the winding riverbanks. The scale of the operation underscored the gravity of the situation, yet the forest, with its vastness and natural concealment, proved a formidable adversary. Investigators faced immediate and profound challenges. There were no clear leads, no eyewitnesses who had seen Avery leave the campground, nor any indication of a struggle or foul play. The dense terrain, while beautiful, offered countless places for a person to become disoriented or, more ominously, to be hidden. Every potential clue, from discarded items to disturbed earth, was meticulously examined, yet yielded nothing concrete. Local volunteer firefighter Daniel Reed, who joined the search efforts, recalled the crushing frustration of those early days, describing the feeling of searching for a ghost in an endless labyrinth. The absence of typical crime scene indicators left detectives without a tangible starting point. No abandoned vehicle, no ransom note, no suspicious phone calls. Avery Dunham had simply vanished, leaving behind only questions and the chilling silence of the wilderness. This lack of evidence made it difficult for law enforcement to classify the event, oscillating between a missing persons case and a potential abduction without any corroborating details. For Avery's family, each passing day without news compounded their anguish. Hope, a fragile commodity, began to erode under the relentless pressure of uncertainty. The unbearable reality of a missing child with no explanation or trace cast a long, dark shadow over their lives. As weeks bled into months, the active search operations, though never fully abandoned, began to scale back. Resources were finite, and without new information, the intensive ground efforts could not be maintained indefinitely. The mystery of Avery's disappearance remained unsolved, a haunting question mark hanging over the Ozarks, a community grappling with the enduring silence. The initial urgency surrounding Avery Dunham's disappearance could not outlast the relentless march of time. Weeks turned into months and then inexorably into years. The vibrant posters bearing Avery's smiling face, once ubiquitous in local storefronts and on utility poles, faded under sun and rain, eventually peeling away or being replaced by newer, more immediate concerns. The daily news cycles, initially dominated by the missing teenager, shifted their focus, leaving the Dunham family to grapple with a silence that grew heavier with each passing season. As time wore on, the active investigation, once a flurry of activity and hope, began to yield diminishing returns. Leads that had once seemed promising evaporated into dead ends. Tips, initially abundant from a sympathetic public, became sporadic, then ceased altogether. Without new evidence or a credible witness, the case, once a priority, slowly but surely migrated from the active roster to the cold file cabinet. It became one of the many unsolved mysteries that haunt rural communities, a constant, low-level thrum of unresolved sorrow. Avery's disappearance cast a long, enduring shadow over the small Ozark community. What began as collective anxiety transformed into a pervasive sense of loss and an unsettling awareness of vulnerability. Parents held their children a little closer, and the once innocent freedom of the forest seemed to hold a new, darker implication. The guidance counselor, who had known Avery, often spoke of the profound void left in the school and the lives of his friends, a void that no amount of time seemed capable of filling. Yet, amidst the fading hopes and the creeping acceptance of the worst, Avery's family clung to a fragile, persistent hope. They maintained websites, organized periodic awareness campaigns, and followed up on every whisper, every vague possibility, refusing to surrender to the finality of silence. The park ranger, a veteran of countless search and rescue operations in the vast wilderness, offered a stark perspective on such cases. He understood that in an environment as immense and unforgiving as the Ozark National Forest, a person could be lost or hidden almost indefinitely. The initial 4 years following Avery's vanishing were a period of agonizing stasis, a void in the lives of his loved ones, and a deep-seated mystery that continued to linger, undisturbed, in the heart of the Ozarks. The forest, which had once offered solace and adventure, now held the secret of Avery Dunham's fate, a secret it seemed determined to keep. 4 years after Avery Dunham's disappearance, the Ozark National Forest finally relinquished its secret, but in a manner far more disturbing than anyone could have anticipated. The long, agonizing silence that had gripped the community was shattered by a discovery that would redefine the entire investigation. The scene was a remote campground fire ring, nestled near a bluff, deep within the familiar yet unforgiving wilderness where Avery was last seen. It was there, in the quiet solitude of the forest, that Avery Dunham's remains were found. The sight confronting investigators was profoundly disquieting. His body was not merely discarded, it was positioned deliberately, kneeling inside the circular confines of the fire pit. The scene bore the unmistakable hallmarks of a grim tableau, meticulously arranged. Around the remains, ash had been mounded with an unsettling precision, forming careful, deliberate spirals that suggested an almost ritualistic intent. This was not the chaotic aftermath of a casual fire. It was a staged environment, a chilling message left for discovery. Adding to the scene's perplexing nature was another critical piece of evidence: charcoal briquettes. These were not scattered randomly, but stacked in alternating brands, creating a distinct repetitive pattern, almost like a deliberate code embedded within the macabre display. The systematic arrangement of the ashes and the coded briquettes immediately signaled to investigators that this was no ordinary recovery. It was a crime scene of extraordinary and unsettling design. The initial responders, including veteran law enforcement officers, the park ranger who had overseen countless searches, and even Daniel Reed, the volunteer firefighter who had combed these woods 4 years prior, were met with profound shock and bewilderment. The bizarre nature of the scene presented a stark contrast to any previous experience. The meticulousness, the deliberate staging, and the cryptic patterns suggested a perpetrator who had not only taken a life, but had also crafted a chilling narrative around its end. A cold case was abruptly reignited, but the extraordinary details of the discovery presented more questions than answers, demanding an unprecedented investigation into the mind behind such a unique and disturbing act. The discovery of Avery Dunham's remains, 4 years after his disappearance, immediately reactivated his case, thrusting it back into the forefront of law enforcement priorities. What had been a cold file, gathering dust, was now reopened with profound urgency and shock. Detectives were reassigned, and fresh eyes were brought in to confront the extraordinary circumstances of the crime. This was no longer a missing persons investigation. It was a homicide, demanding a forensic approach unlike any previously encountered in the Ozarks. The fire pit became the epicenter of the new investigation. Every grain of ash, every charred fragment, and especially the meticulously arranged spirals and the coded briquette stack, underwent intense scrutiny. Forensic teams working under protective canopies meticulously documented and collected samples. The ash spirals, so deliberately formed, were analyzed for their composition, consistency, and the exactitude of their shape. Investigators theorized about their symbolic or functional meaning: a ritual, a signature, a mocking gesture, or perhaps a message intended for discovery. Similarly, the charcoal briquettes stacked in alternating brands were photographed, catalogued, and removed. Their systematic arrangement suggested a deliberate, almost obsessive, compulsive act, hinting at a perpetrator with a distinct method. Recognizing the highly unusual nature of these patterns, law enforcement sought specialized assistance. An amateur pattern analyst, known for their work in deciphering complex visual data, was brought in. This analyst's task was to look beyond conventional forensic markers and attempt to deconstruct the visual language of the crime scene. They studied the symmetry, spacing, and overall design of both the ash spirals and the briquette code, searching for any underlying logic or recognizable motif to translate these cryptic arrangements into actionable intelligence. Investigators grappled with the implications of such a meticulously staged scene. The kneeling posture of Avery's body, combined with the ritualistic ash patterns, pointed towards a motive far more complex than a simple act of violence. This suggested a killer driven by something beyond conventional criminal intent, perhaps a psychological compulsion or a desire to leave a profound, unsettling mark. The search for comparable cases proved challenging. The specific combination of elements found at Avery's fire pit appeared unique, frustrating attempts to draw parallels or understand the perpetrator's mindset. The investigation entered a deeply frustrating phase. Detectives were faced with a chillingly eloquent crime scene, yet one that spoke in a language they struggled to understand. The careful spirals and coded briquettes were undeniably a message, a signature, but one that remained stubbornly impenetrable. The killer had left behind not just a body but a puzzle, challenging law enforcement to crack a seemingly impenetrable code with only the unique patterns as their guide. An unforeseen event, a force of nature, would ultimately provide the crucial turning point in the baffling case of Avery Dunham. Months after the shocking discovery in the fire pit, a protracted dry spell, combined with high winds, ignited a wildfire in a remote section of the Ozarks National Forest. The blaze, though destructive, inadvertently became an instrument of justice. As the inferno was eventually brought under control, it left behind a vast blackened burn scar, a stark alteration of the landscape. This scorched earth, however, also exposed ground that had been untouched for years, revealing secrets buried beneath the forest floor. Within the newly exposed terrain of the burn scar, a discovery was made that would shatter the investigative deadlock. Buried shallowly beneath the ash and char, several small foil-wrapped packets were uncovered. Their contents, preserved by the foil and the protective layer of earth, were immediately recognized as profoundly significant. Inside were guitar picks, some bearing the faded logo of a local music store, and a collection of ticket stubs from various regional concerts and music festivals dating back several years. These were not random artifacts. They were personal effects, intimately tied to the life of a high school drummer. Investigators swiftly linked these items to Avery Dunham. The guitar picks, though not drum-related, were consistent with the accessories found in musical circles, and the ticket stubs perfectly aligned with Avery's known passion for live music and his presence at such events prior to his disappearance. This tangible connection, unearthed by the elemental force of the wildfire, provided the first clear, direct link between Avery and a specific, previously hidden location within the vast forest. It was the amateur pattern analyst, still poring over the photographs and data from the fire pit scene, who made the critical breakthrough. Applying their unique expertise to the precise geometry of the ash spirals, they began to search for any analogous patterns, any similar artistic or structural arrangements documented anywhere. Their diligent search eventually led them to an unexpected source: public social media profiles. A local individual had a history of meticulously staging bonfires, often documenting these elaborate arrangements with photographs. The analyst discovered an astonishing correlation. The distinct, careful spirals found around Avery's body in the fire pit bore a remarkable, almost identical resemblance to the unique spiral patterns this individual consistently crafted in their own staged bonfires, proudly displayed online. This direct correlation was the seismic shift the investigation desperately needed. The unique signature left at the crime scene, once an impenetrable enigma, now had a tangible, identifiable source. The pattern analysis provided investigators with their first concrete lead to a potential suspect, linking the bizarre and unsettling crime directly to a specific individual with a documented propensity for such unique arrangements. The long cold case of Avery Dunham exploded wide open, with the forces of nature ultimately revealing the hidden truth and finally pointing towards Avery's killer. The breakthrough provided by the amateur pattern analyst triggered immediate and decisive action from law enforcement. With the unique signature from the crime scene now definitively linked to a specific individual's documented online activity, an arrest was swiftly made. The suspect, whose identity had been concealed by the Ozarks' vastness and the bizarre nature of the crime, was apprehended, bringing a sudden, shocking end to 4 years of agonizing uncertainty. Interrogations and further investigations slowly began to unravel the mystery surrounding the fire pit. The code of the briquettes and the careful spirals of ash were confirmed to be precisely what investigators had suspected: a deliberate, chilling signature. They were not random acts, but a calculated and consistent pattern employed by the perpetrator, a macabre artistic expression designed to mystify and control the narrative of Avery Dunham's final moments. While the precise motive behind such an elaborate and ritualistic display remained chillingly obscure, the method was undeniably clear: a methodical, almost ceremonial staging of death that spoke to a profound psychological disturbance. The Ozark community reacted with a complex mixture of relief and profound horror. The apprehension of a suspect brought an end to the pervasive fear that had lingered since Avery's disappearance, but it also exposed a darkness within their own midst, a reminder that even in idyllic settings, malevolence could take root. The revelation was a stark, unsettling truth. For Avery Dunham's family, the arrest brought a devastating confirmation of their deepest fears, yet also the first fragile steps towards closure. The profound pain of knowing Avery's fate was now coupled with the relief of knowing who was responsible. It allowed them to begin the arduous process of grieving, transforming an unbearable question mark into a sorrowful yet understood reality. The volunteer firefighter Daniel Reed spoke of the immense weight lifted from the community, a testament to the enduring power of persistence. The park ranger reflected on how the forest, which had guarded its secret for so long, ultimately revealed it through the unexpected force of a wildfire, a reminder of nature's unpredictable hand in human affairs. Avery's guidance counselor mourned the vibrant young life cut short, the unfulfilled dreams of a talented drummer, and the lasting impact on those who knew him. And the amateur pattern analyst, whose unique insight had been the linchpin, underscored the importance of looking beyond the obvious, finding patterns in the chaos and recognizing the distinct human fingerprint, however twisted, left behind. The case of Avery Dunham, a tragic tale of a teenager vanished in the Ozarks, became a somber reflection on the hidden darkness that can lurk even in the most beautiful and remote landscapes, and the relentless pursuit of truth that can, against all odds, bring it to light.